We're trying a new angle today. I'm gonna see how I feel about it in the edit. You guys, if you're watching this in June, that means I pulled an all-nighter to edit this video, and you should subscribe. I love lesbians. Top 0.01% of Good Luck Babe listeners in this house. I'm sure somewhere deep in my mind, I knew this about Rhajat, but after years of weathering discourse about problematic rep from Fire Emblem Fates, it's easy to forget Rhajat is the first woman in Fire Emblem who can marry another woman. I completely forgot, especially because so much of Fates' discourse focuses on Niles being an evil, lusty bisexual, which 10 years ago was a bit more of a common representation, so I do understand the fatigue with that type of queer rep. And Soleil is so much more interested in women that boy Corin has to drug her with a hallucinogen so that Soleil will see Corin as a girl and they can be together. It's okay, in the Western release, they just do some blindfold play. Soleil is canonically bisexual, but it does evoke feelings of, you just haven't met the right guy yet. You're not actually attracted to women, so you don't know. Meanwhile, Rhajat is staying in her lane, minding her own business, doing some entry-level stalking, drinking water, staying hydrated, doing her skincare. She's obsessed with the main character, Corin, but I think because she's an iteration of an existing character, discourse around Rhajat just wasn't as fervent, at least from what I can see on various forum sites online. Her and Niles are both creepy bisexuals, bad queer rep, some might say, but Rhajat doesn't take the same heat. Is it because people don't take sapphic women seriously? Let's dive in. If we rewind to about 10 years ago, Awakening really was the golden child of the franchise. It more or less saved Fire Emblem as a series because it introduced shipping wars to the masses through its marriage and child mechanics. Genealogy of the Holy War did it first, but that game is a Japanese exclusive and 100 years old, so I don't think it really had the same global appeal. I do think the alleged remake would give us a lot to talk about. In my opinion, Awakening largely handled its second generation cast gimmick pretty well. It's a story about the main character's daughter who travels back in time from an apocalyptic future, trying to prevent said ruin. So in this game, it's plausible that the main cast's children joins them as teens. Because of Awakening's success, Intelligent Systems felt that they had to justify doing a lot of the same things in Fates. So there are these little pocket dimensions called Deep Realms, where the cast leaves their kids during the war, and they age more rapidly because of reasons. I do think it's funny that most of the second gen cast gets deeply upset with their deadbeat parents who have basically been absent their whole lives because of this time differential, but literal child Hayato seems to be a bit more of an attentive father compared to his countrymen as he watches his daughter grow older than him. Rhajat doesn't resent him for not being around. Again, to capitalize on the success of Awakening, they reuse 6 character designs based on popularity and split them between the Birthright and Conquest paths of the game. Rhajat is mainly available in the Birthright path, but almost every character is available in the Golden Route Revelations. I can get behind the critiques of reusing a character design. Rhajat is modeled after Tharia from Fire Emblem Awakening. You can come for my pronunciation if you're a public subscriber, but if you're not, I don't want to hear it. Reusing a popular character like this might feel fan servicey and not leave much opportunity for a satisfying payoff. And Tharia is an obsessive big titty goth girlfriend who casts curses on people while stunning in new photo. There's a lot of preconception attached to this design, and the point of Rhajat is to evoke thoughts of Tharia. Rhajat's name is literally an anagram. On the other hand, it kind of feels like she's a bonus character since pursuing the second gen units is purely optional. To me, it feels a little bit like getting a special guest character in a fighting game, whether or not you're excited she's here. And I do think getting a Tharia reskin adds to the fact that Fates is a relatively unserious and fan servicey with everything except the gameplay. I embrace that Fates is bad. That's why my Birthright and Conquest review videos are taking so long. There's not a compelling story to critique, but god is it ever fun to play. Rhajat's paralogue becomes available after chapter 8 and once child bride Hayato weds. When the characters find time to have children in these games, I couldn't tell ya. Some people think this fight is really hard, which might be true on higher difficulties if you don't know the gimmick. I love my life, so I rarely play games on difficulties higher than normal if I have the option. Rhajat, in a magic experiment, has learned how to summon the Faceless, which is the Fates generic monster enemy. The chapter centers around running to various toxic bogs around the map and neutralizing them using dragon veins, a Fates exclusive exclusive mechanic that lets characters with royal blood alter terrain. Doing so stops the infinite waves of reinforcements. That's why I say this map could be hard. If you don't realize that you have to go to each pool, it just goes forever. Defeating Rhajat doesn't end it, recruiting her doesn't end it. I was stuck on this map for a really long time, which was nice for the experience, you know, good opportunity to grind, but after a while it just gets really tedious. I had to look up how to beat the map, and that did make me feel pretty silly. Rhajat is definitely a more gimmicky character. She has a couple personality traits that she really clings on to. She's making potions, she's making malignant trinkets, she's following people around, she's casting curses on people, she loves a hyperfixation. Normally I would get into unit performance, but the Fates reclassing / skill system is so complex and dependent on how you utilize the rest of your cast that it's hard to even get into. Rhajat makes things a little bit simpler. She's a diviner, which is a retool of the mage class designed to fit Birthright's Japanese inspired aesthetic with high magic and high speed. If you pair Hayato with a magically oriented girl, you're on the right track. Her growth rates and stat spread is so skewed. Some of the characters can be pretty heavily altered depending on their parents. Rhajat doesn't face that. She's not really ever going to have good attack or defense. Not that you would necessarily want that for her. One notable drawback is that she has really low skill, but again, Hayato's pairings don't necessarily remedy this. At least from a stats perspective, abilities can help her work around her bad skill stat. Diviner can promote into the Basara class, which uses lances and scrolls. From it, she gets Rend Heaven, a skill that boosts damage dealt based on enemy stats, and then Quixotic. The pronunciation of this word is crazy because it's based on Don Quixote, but it's not pronounced Quixotic, it's Quixotic. Who do I talk to about that? Merriam-Webster is gonna get a crazy email from me. It increases accuracy and skill activation. Onmyoji is the other promotion. It's the Sage equivalent, and that's where you get Tome Fair. Her alternate base class is Oni Savage, which I don't think offers anything particularly interesting skills-wise. Oni Chieftain could make her a bulkier magic unit if that's something you want for yourself. I would say that the main 4 mother contenders from the mothership are Sakura, Orochi, Felicia, and Nyx. They're all fine. I chose Sakura for my most recent Birthright playthrough because Orochi is a whole woman, and I forgot Felicia existed, to be honest. Sakura and Felicia pass down healing classes. Unless you're using Rhajat as a healer, which she can do in the Onmyoji class, I don't think she gets anything interesting from Felicia, besides maybe Live to Serve from the maid class. But from Sakura, she has access to Priestess, which offers counter magic and renewal, and I feel like renewal is better than Live to Serve. Live to Serve demands that a unit has lost HP, and Rhajat will also gain whatever she heals, but renewal just happens every turn, and that feels better. Orochi doesn't pass down an extra class, but is available in all routes that Hayato is in, whereas he can only marry Nyx in Revelation, but she passes down Dark Mage, which is generally exclusive to the Conquest route. It offers Vengeance, which boosts your attacks proportionate to damage taken, and Heartseeker can mend her poor accuracy in one range combat. You can also pair Hayato with Setsuna so that the archer class gets passed down, which offers a skill to increase accuracy. She can also marry Kiragi, who will do the same thing. In Fates, the world is your oyster when it comes to unit build, but I think it's very stressful but interesting to make that puzzle work. You could also maybe marry Asugi for Ninja, because then you could have 2 Rhajats, and that would be tremendous. Dream Blunt rotation. Anyways, her personal skill is Vendetta because she loves to carry a grudge. On to the supports. I know that's why you're all here. Thankfully, the child characters have a little bit less content than the first generation cast, so reading through all of these was a little less time consuming, but nonetheless, I do have to do a fair amount of research for these videos. If you're having fun, like and subscribe, stick around. I make videos dissecting Fire Emblem characters all the time. Except for when I don't. I have a Blue Sky. I have a Discord. She's been really popping off lately because we're talking about the Switch 2. Speaking of the Switch 2, many of you voted that you would watch my Switch 2 review on my second channel, and currently there's less views than votes, and I would love to see you over there. Back on topic. Because Rhajat is second gen, a lot of her support conversations are the same. Hayato will always be her dad, but her mom could be many, many characters. There's also a chance that she'll have a sibling. Her sibling support conversation conversations are not unique to her. They're attached to the two siblings, and her mother supports are also all the same because they're anchored to her. And this includes if Corin is her mother as well. Rhajat cast a spell on a nearby village's crops to help them grow. They all get sick and blame her. Rhajat does claim that the villagers were already sick before she got there. She goes out of her way to grow medicinal herbs to cure the illness and save the village anyways. Not very Tharia coded if you ask me. Rhajat seems pretty nice. Someone's gonna get annoyed if I don't bring up the Japan exclusive Hoshiden Festival DLC, in which she does have unique conversations with each of her mothers. That does sound like them saying their quirk back and forth to one another. I enjoy that they exist. Thank you to the fan translators who made them available, but I don't have like a nugget of wisdom or a hidden gem to present to you. If there's something that you see in this character that I don't, Diva, the Patreon might cost money, but the comments are free. With her father, Hayato, he tries scolding her for not being sociable enough, and she laughs in his face because she's older than her own dad. She even claims that she might be older than her mom because of the pocket dimension she was raised in. This game is crazy. Hayato didn't realize the full implication of the Deep Realm time dilation, which is fair. He's a kid, and he apologizes for not being there enough, which Rhajat accepts because she's a loner. I think she appreciates the show of emotion, but I think it's also genuine that she was okay for most of it. Shigure is one of the potential sibling supports if Hayato marries Azura. This one is anchored to Shigure because he will always have a sibling, if I'm not mistaken. It's about him singing to woodland animals like a Disney princess and the sibling wanting to spend more time with him. The romantic support is specific to these characters. They talk about their time growing up in their respective deep realms in private, fully staffed houses. All of Shigure's caretakers died right before his recruitment chapter, and Rhajat just wasn't close to her staff. She says she preferred being alone, but Shigure asks Hayato, and apparently he revealed that Rhajat would hide away sometimes because she didn't have full control over her magic and she didn't want to risk hurting anybody. She's very coy. With Dwyer, she plucks his hair to make a haunted doll, then offers to make him an SSRI. Girl, if we're handing them out, pass me one. Then she says if he gives up an eyeball, she can conjure a royal tea set for him. Dwyer likes Rhajat because in his eyes, she's also a gloomy person, and she appreciates that he doesn't think she's a creepy weirdo. In their proposal scene, Dwyer asks about a matchmaking spell, and Rhajat says it won't be necessary because of their mutual feelings. She says, I'm going to stick with you until one or both of us is dead. It may not be as long as you think, and that made me laugh. With Shiro, we learn that Rhajat doesn't mind a human atrocity. She loves a little bit of body horror, but eating animal meat is a pretty hard no for her. Shiro thinks she looks sickly and keeps trying to push these meat dishes onto her, and she curses him with a cold. The literature is not groundbreaking. With Kiragi, she sends him to dangerous places in the mountains to collect ingredients without telling him about the risks. She feels bad about it, so she apologizes and then starts going with him. Kiragi makes a joke about Rhajat not being able to go outside because she's a witch and she'll melt in the rain. Super topical.
That's my line.
Rhajat is a stalker, so she and Asugi talk about tailing people since he's a ninja. She tells him about a spell that turns you invisible, but only when you're physically near someone you're close to, which is a little freaky. She starts to follow him with her curse because they're getting closer. Aww. I do enjoy their proposal scene. Rhajat has tweaked the spell so that you can turn invisible when you think of a person you love. You don't have to be close to them. And Asuki says, I spend most of my time tailing other men. I mean, I'm open-minded and all, and he gets cut off. But I'm curious, where does the sentence go? Is it by curiosity? Is he king ally and really believes in and loves his bisexual girlfriend? These are the questions. Rhajat worships Selkie because she's a kitsune and foxes are messengers of the gods, which annoys Selkie to no end. Rhajat keeps throwing money at her as a tithing, and Selkie is like, please fuck off. Like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I think her obsession with Selkie could be read as a little sapphic. Rhajat wants them to make an eternal friendship pact. It's giving. You know, it's a little much. Hisame loves a pickled treat, so they eat a pickled treat. This is my least favorite name, I think, in the game. Kale Dory. She's a model soldier, and she asks Rhajat to give her tips on being more devious. It's cute. Kale Dory does struggle because she's a little too preppy. Rhajat gathers a bunch of food and tells Mitama that she's going to lock herself in her room for a month to work on spells. She gifts Mitama the charms that she's made, and they all have convenient magical effects, like keeping bugs off you, generating heat, producing light. They're very friendly with one another. Mitama's a shrine maiden. She also loves to indulge in a nap. This means that they both have an appreciation for solitude and respect each other's desire for alone time. This mutual understanding let me believe their friendship in a way that I wasn't expecting. I thought the writing was stronger than most Fates supports, and it's not necessarily a connection I would have made myself, so I was pleasantly surprised by their bond. It's one of my favorite Rhajat supports. That's it for Birthright. The next 3 are only available in Revelations, where the Birthright and Conquest characters cross over and all exist together as one big happy family. Rhajat and Forest queen out together over their fashion sense, very LGBTQ of them. They can't agree on going shopping, so Forest makes her an outfit. At first, Rhajat is curious how Forest measured her, but she drops it and takes the clothes anyways. Initially, going into this video, I had some mild concerns about Rhajat's bisexuality being limited to the player. We'll get to that when we talk about Corrin. I read Forest as trans femme because of their gender presentation. I do appreciate that their straight relationship inadvertently presents as a lesbian couple and confirms that Rhajat's attraction to femininity is not just exclusive to the player, because with Corrin, they do lean so much into the obsessive angle. I was interested to see if it was going to be romantic or not, but we will cross that bridge when we get there. It does soothe my heart that the game largely treats Forest as deserving of dignity and affection. That makes me really happy. Fates is bad in a lot of ways, but I appreciate that it's so gay. In reading her supports with Percy, I feel like I don't enjoy Percy as a character. I was bored. My eyes were glazing over. His wyvern gets sick. Rhajat helps that. I would love to see an animated version of Rhajat and Ophelia's C-rank conversation. They're both magical freaks. Rhajat is a creep and Ophelia is theatrical. In their first convo, Ophelia keeps making grand statements and wants Rhajat to react, but she just keeps leaving the room. She does it 3 or 4 times. She goes, "I don't want to talk to you." And then they keep on having to insert the stage direction. Rhajat leaves. I don't know why that was so funny to me. She is so sick of this girl she's never talked to. Eventually, Ophelia challenges Rhajat and claims she'll cleanse her evil aura with gemstones. Very crystal healing energy. Rhajat looks forward to seeing her try. Ophelia doesn't manage to. Rhajat curses her a little bit, but since she has a conscience, she also makes a good luck charm for Ophelia out of pity. Rhajat does realize after making the charm, which she calls the most perverse and challenging magic she's ever attempted, because it's good. She acknowledges that Ophelia's perseverance may have actually changed her attitude a bit. Aura cleansed. Kana and Corrin are the most annoying characters in this discussion, since their genders are affected based on player choice, and that can impact marriage and their relationships to one another. Rhajat has 3 supports with Kana. The first is if Kana's a girl. Rhajat only has a support string with her if she and Corrin get straight married, Kana being their daughter. Girl Kana's support is the same with every potential mother and is really out of character for Rhajat. It's a similar situation for boy Kana. If Corrin and Hayato get straight married, Kana and Rhajat can be siblings, and that support string also isn't specific to Rhajat. Maybe she has a tender side that she only shows to kids who are younger than her dad. They are generic, but I am treating them as canon. Rhajat is nice to her siblings. She's nice to her potential child. They do have a unique support string if they're not related. Hayato is a kid, but I think the game considers Kana to be a baby, more or less. So even though the ending in the credits indicates that it is romantic, the game does not play it like that. Even though they can S-rank each other, which is the proposal scene, they don't propose, they just talk more. Is it kind of grooming? I don't want to get into it. Rhajat helps Kana with a toothache, causing him to continue to follow her around because he thinks she's interesting. Rhajat is like, "You should be more obsessed with your mom." I know I am. Kana offers to ask Corrin questions on Rajat's behalf, which is a little weird, to weaponize the child of the person that you stalk. But I guess we know that Rhajat is a joke character in a silly game and acts in good faith. I take solace in that. Finally, on to Corrin. Their supports are the same regardless of Corrin's gender. I would argue that Fire Emblem thus far has always deployed the gay button, at least in games where the player is responsible for pairings, which means that queerness is optional and avoidable for players who aren't seeking any sort of queer experience in their games. I believe this is why all of the queer romance options for the player insert characters are all bisexual. None of them are exclusively queer. There are explicitly queer characters in Fire Emblem games where you're not choosing which character you think is the hottest. I was a little worried that they were gonna Aloise me, right? That I was gonna get Gilberted, where the game is signaling to me that Rhajat might be bisexual, but they could walk that back if they wanted, because they did that in Three Houses. Since Rhajat is obsessed with Corin regardless of gender, I was thinking we might run into the same thing where it's not romantic, it's not about attraction, it's just about this hyperfixation. Rhajat is obsessed with Corin because Tharia was obsessed with Robin, but I do appreciate that they came up with a unique backstory that justifies why Rhajat has this adoration. Because Tharia, it's just like a feeling, it's just a vibe. But Corin saved Rhajat's life a couple times, including once as a child, and she's just held on to that forever. I do think it's a little odd that Corin can marry their friends' kids who they've known since birth, but that's Fates, baby. At least the time dilation makes it appropriate. That's really it for the supports. I've shared what I've wanted to when it comes to the DLC, but we need to talk about her endings. Character endings are determined by pairing at the end of the game and are shown to the player during the credits. Rhajat has 4. Her title is Black Magician. When she's single, it states that scholars couldn't agree whether she studied spells in seclusion or stalked Corin until she died. That's whatever. Par for the course. She has the same line of text in every ending where she marries a man. Scholars note Rhajat's incredible devotion to her beloved. The two were rarely seen apart in public. I think this is symptomatic of the way Fates wrote all of its endings, but the first sentence is like a goal or the job that her husband did for the rest of their lives, and it just lists that she was a wife. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can be a wife, but wives are more than their husbands. I feel like that's not controversial, but also she's a weirdo. You can go with the wife angle. Like, you couldn't sprinkle in a little, she always had a curse on hand to add some tumult to their adventures. Where's the flavor? It's not specific to her. That's my big issue. Then we have Rhajat's lesbian endings, and they're lovely. They're lovely. I'm so glad for them. In both of these, she marries girl Corin. It just depends on which game you're playing. In Birthright, it states, after restoring Hoshido and Nor, Corin traveled the world with Rhajat always by her side. Their mutual love and devotion was legendary, and stories of it are told in all of the countries they visited. They're famous lesbians. They're a famous lesbian influencer couple, you guys. Party. They are together. It might be a little bit of a Sam and Aaron Taylor Johnson situation, but we're gonna ignore that. Then in Revelation, it says, Corin and Rhajat ruled over the kingdom of Vala together, ushering in a new era of peace. Some years later, they adopted 2 orphan children and raised them as successors to the throne. They adopted kids? Fates pretends that adoption doesn't even exist. Like, if Corin gay marries Rhajat or Niles, they don't have children. In Genealogy, which again came out a century ago, they at least had alternate units on deck if the marriage stuff didn't work out conveniently, and this game is psychotic. You couldn't have magicked in some alternate dimension babies? What about a surrogate? Like, let's... There are options. Like, just let them adopt. This ending, acknowledging that adoption is an option. Wow, bars. It was such a pleasant surprise. I love the idea of 2 queen mothers ruling the mothership. Rhajat's endings with girl Corin are infinitely more interesting than the other ones. And I think Rhajat's a lesbian. Like, she seems a little bored of the men, don't you think? She loves her girlfriends. She's making them gifts. She wants to talk to them. With the men, it's like, hey, can you do a chore for me? Hey, stop talking to me. Hey, what if I cursed you? There's something there. I'll see you in the next one. Rapid fire. Do you like Fire Emblem Fates? Which of the 3DS era Fire Emblems are your favorite? Have you played all 3 routes? Have you played Revelations? How did you build Rhajat? I used her as a pretty straightforward mage, and then I paired her with Asuki to make his magic better. Stay tuned for the Birthright video where I get into that. Who do you want me to talk about next? I know Mitama did very well in the polls. What game should I talk about next? I hope you enjoy the first in the Fates series. I had a big Fates renaissance this year, and I'm hoping to get a good amount of Fates content done before I go back to school in September. Anyways, that's all for today. Ooh, it is so fun that I need to be at the airport in 15 hours. Do I think it's weird that Corey Corey in the house. Oh no, what have I done? They have a union. Like with Selkie, they have an eternal friendship pact, and they were roommates, and they had a barn together. And we know that it's only a 1-bedroom house, and they sleep in the same bed together, but whenever we invite them to the barbecue, they always insist that they're not together. But whenever we invite them to the barbecue, they always insist that they're not together, but they wave a pride flag from their balcony, and it just... I guess it's not anything. Be who you are.